Chapter 24. If Su Fengnian said that he was not afraid at all, he would be lying to himself. However, Su Fengnian believed in his intuition. The old man who had been trapped at the bottom of the lake for more than 10 years would not make things difficult for him. After all, they had interacted for so many years. Su Fengnian had thrown countless chicken drumsticks and barbecued meat into the lake. He would dive down every few days during spring and summer to get familiar with the old man. No matter what, they had a bit of friendship. Su Fengnian did not mention this matter to his father, Su Xiao. He believed that both father and son were well aware that Su Fengnian was at most grateful for saving his life. Even if he released this trapped monster from the lake, if Su Dezhugua became angry, he would at most be whipped. Moreover, Su Fengnian was also curious about the strength of the capable people in Bailiang Palace. He also wanted to know if the old man who could survive for more than 10 years was a master on the level of the top 10 masters in the world. Su Fengnian pretended to be calm and said, "Old Huang, do you know what I'm going to do? Why are you following me? Can you swim? Don't drown." The old servant smiled shyly and did not say anything. He seemed to feel that the bag was heavy. He shook his small body and lifted the wooden box a few inches. When he reached the center of the lake, Su Fengnian pulled out the purple spring thunder from the simple scabbard that was not as beautiful as the embroidered winter. He took a deep breath and threw the blade down with all his strength. After a while, there was still no movement. Su Fengnian almost cursed out loud. He thought to himself that it wouldn't be like drawing water with a bamboo basket again, and that he would have to jump down to retrieve the saber. Old Huang slowly moved to the bow of the boat and did not move at all. Su Fengnian said helplessly, "Old Huang, don't pretend to be an expert in front of me. Do you think I don't know how strong you are?" Old Huang turned his head and laughed. Su Fengnian glared at him and said, "What are you laughing at? You think you're so great because you don't have front teeth." In an instant, the rise and fall of the lake was more intense and terrifying than any of the previous waves. It was as if the world was about to be turned upside down. Hiding in the boat, Su Fengnian's first thought was to call for Old Huang to retreat. Then, of course, he would let his father's men clean up the mess. He was His Royal Highness, who could even make spring thunder attack with total annihilation, so he couldn't be so stupid as to compete with old man. But very quickly Su Fengnian sensed the strangeness of the small boat with a black awning. The waves on the lake were frightening, but the old coachman, who had been traveling for 3 years and would run away whenever he encountered danger, lightly stamped his foot, and the swaying boat instantly became as solid as a boulder, motionless. Old Huang did not forget to turn his head and grin. He stretched out his hand and gestured that he was about the same height as Su Fengnian. The general meaning was that he was a master of this height. Su Fengnian did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Old Huang, you still have the mood to be carefree right now. Don't wait until you're beaten up by old man. You don't have front teeth to begin with." A gray figure leapt down from the winding corridor on the 3rd floor of the Tide Listening Pavilion. He landed on one foot and with a bounce, his figure gracefully swept into the lake. Su Fengnian subconsciously raised his hand, only to find that there was no cucumber in his hand to chew on. He felt a bit regretful. A good show was about to begin. The Tide Listening Pavilion was what the people of Jianghu referred to as the armory. There were 5 servants guarding the pavilion. Su Fengnian had been familiar with them since he was young, so much so that he would find a corner to pee in when he needed to. He called them uncle and grandpa politely. The person guarding the 3rd floor of the Tide Listening Pavilion was a Taoist master. He was the founder of the way of Jiudumi, one of the 3 great orthodoxies. According to his master, Li Yishan, he was proficient in Chimen Duanjia. He was a genuine second-stage mystic enlightening cultivator. He was only willing to enter the pavilion as a servant for the sole copy of the deed of thorough comprehension in the Tide Listening Pavilion. When Su Fengnian was young, he was tired of climbing stairs and often had the old man carry him. The old Taoist of Jiudumi wore a gray wide-sleeved Taoist robe. After jumping into the lake, he gracefully dashed forward like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. He rolled up his sleeves and sent 2 water pillars straight to the center of the lake. Su Fengnian was relieved to see that the boat was not capsized. He clicked his tongue in wonder and said, "Grandpa Wei's skills are so formidable. If I had known, I would have brought him along on my travels. Those bandits would have been beaten to a pulp." When Old Huang heard His Royal Highness's words, he turned his head with a bitter expression on his old face. Su Fengnian did not want Old Huang, who had been running around with him for 3 years, to be sad. He smiled and said, "No matter how powerful Grandpa Wei is, he can't be compared to you, old Huang, who can steal birds' nests and fish. There are many masters in this world, but old Huang is the only one who can weave straw sandals." The old servant smiled tenderly, giving Su Fengnian goosebumps. He hurriedly said, "Let's watch the show. Don't miss it." Both the master and servant looked towards the lake. Two jet-black chains broke through the water like flood dragons emerging from the sea, full of momentum. At the end of the chain, there were two hiltless swords. One of the swords was as clear as snow, and the other was as red as blood. In the words of His Highness the Crown Prince, the swords were very attractive. At first glance, one could tell that they were masters of martial arts. Su Fengnian did not have a large stack of banknotes on hand. Otherwise he would have shouted, "You deserve it!" The two blades broke through the two water dragons that old Taoist Mi had sent out, shattering them on the spot. The 10 feet tall Xiong Kuei's body rushed out of the lake. Without the restraint of the copper balls at the bottom of the lake, the white-haired Xiong Kuei who appeared out of nowhere laughed wildly, almost breaking Su Fengnian's eardrums. With a swing of the chains, he drew an arc in the air. The scarlet blade chopped towards the old Taoist. The blade's momentum was peerlessly tyrannical. It cut through the air, bringing with it a whistling wind. Old Taoist Wei lightly shouted. He stepped on the water with one foot, stirring up 1,000 layers of waves that shot towards the long blade. The waves were cut in half. The huge blade was like a hot knife through butter. The old Taoist shook his sleeve, attempting to block this biting cold blade that he had never seen before in his life. However, it was futile. The wide sleeve of his Taoist robe was instantly shattered. He was defeated in one move.